Imagine you're shopping online. You find something you want. Maybe it's a pair of sneakers, a new laptop, a jacket you've been eyeing for weeks. You get to the checkout page, and right there, next to the total price, you see a little option that says, pay in 4 easy installments of $37.50. Zero interest, zero fees. And something in your brain just relaxes. Suddenly, the $150 price tag doesn't feel like $150 anymore. It feels like $37.50. Manageable, reasonable, almost free. You click it, you check out. The item ships. Life is good. Now multiply that moment by 4 or 6 or 10, because that's what's actually happening. Not just for you, or an entire generation of people who are quietly accumulating a new kind of debt that looks nothing like the old kind, feels nothing like the old kind, and is somehow far more dangerous because of it. Buy now, pay later. 4 words that have been packaged into one of the smoothest, most psychologically sophisticated financial products ever designed. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on exactly how it works, why your brain loves it, what it's actually costing you, and why the generation that grew up skeptical of credit cards is somehow falling deeper into debt than any generation before them. One $37.50 installment at a time. Let's talk about why this story is so interesting from a historical angle. Millennials and Gen Z, the primary users of buy now, pay later services, grew up watching their parents get crushed by credit card debt. They watched the 2008 financial crisis unfold. They saw the real consequences of borrowing money carelessly, and many of them made a deliberate decision. I am not going to use credit cards. I am going to be smarter than that. That instinct was genuine. It came from a real place of financial awareness, and in many ways it was the right instinct. But here's the irony that nobody is talking about loudly enough. The generation that was most suspicious of traditional debt became the most enthusiastic adopters of a new kind of debt. One that was designed specifically to not feel like debt. One that was marketed as the responsible modern alternative to the predatory credit card industry. One that arrived in their lives looking like a helpful tool and turned out to be something far more complicated. Buy now, pay later, or BNPL as the industry calls it, has exploded over the last several years. BNPL? Companies have collectively processed hundreds of billions of dollars in transactions. Hundreds of millions of people around the world use these services regularly. And the fastest growing user base? People between the ages of 18 and 34. The same demographic that said they didn't want debt. The same generation that was supposed to know better. So what happened? The answer isn't that they were careless or naive. The answer is that buy now, pay later was engineered with extraordinary precision to bypass every psychological defense that makes human beings cautious about spending money they don't have. And to understand why that matters so much, you need to understand something fascinating about the way your brain experiences the act of paying. There's a concept in behavioral economics called the pain of paying. It was developed by researchers studying why people feel differently about spending money depending on how they spend it. Here's the core finding. When you hand over physical cash for something, your brain registers that transaction as a genuine loss. You had something tangible in your hand. Now it's gone. The emotional system that monitors threats and losses fires a small but real signal. Something that feels like a mild discomfort, a moment of hesitation, a tiny pang of, is this worth it? Researchers found that this pain of paying actually acts as a natural brake on spending. It makes you think twice. It keeps impulse purchases in check. Now here's where it gets interesting. When you pay with a credit card, that pain signal is significantly reduced. You're not handing over something real and tangible. Yeah, you're swiping a piece of plastic. The money doesn't feel like it's leaving. Studies have consistently shown that people spend more, sometimes dramatically more, when paying with cards versus cash, precisely because the pain of paying is muted. But buy now, pay later? It doesn't just mute the pain of paying. It practically eliminates it entirely, and it does it in a way that is almost artistically clever. Think about what BNPL actually does to the psychology of a purchase. First, it breaks the total cost into smaller pieces, which makes each piece feel trivial. A $200 item becomes 4 payments of $50. Your brain doesn't process $200 leaving your life. It processes $50, and $50 for something you want right now? That barely registers as a sacrifice. My second, and this is the part that most people completely miss, it separates the pleasure of the purchase from the pain of the payment in time. You get the item today. The emotional reward is immediate, full, real. But the payment, that's a future problem. And as we talked about in a previous video, your brain treats future costs as far less real and significant than present rewards. The joy of getting the package today is vivid and immediate. The discomfort of the payment 3 weeks from now is abstract and distant. By the time that first installment comes out of your account, the emotional context of the purchase has completely evaporated. You're not making the decision anymore. The decision was made weeks ago by a version of you who is excited about a purchase. The payment just quietly processes in the background. I disconnected from any feeling of enjoyment, feeling only like a mundane bill. And by then, you've already made 3 more BNPL purchases on top of it. This is not an accident. This is the design. Every single element of Buy Now, Pay Later was built to remove friction, reduce the perception of cost, and disconnect the emotional experience of buying from the financial reality of paying. Let's walk through exactly what happens to a real person using Buy Now, Pay Later, the way most people actually use it. Not in some extreme cautionary tale, but in the completely ordinary, I'm being responsible way that millions of people are doing it right now. Meet Alex. Alex is 26, earns a decent salary, has a rough budget, and considers themselves financially aware. Alex doesn't use credit cards on principle, but Alex does use BNPL because in Alex's mind, it's different. There's no interest. There's no revolving debt. It's just splitting the cost over time. Completely logical, totally under control. In January, Alex uses BNPL to buy a $160 pair of running shoes, 4 payments of $40, spread over 6 weeks. Reasonable. Alex is actually going to use the shoes. In February, there's a sale on a jacket Alex has wanted, $240, 4 payments of $60. Alex has the cash to cover it. This isn't irresponsible spending. It's just convenient. Why pay $240 up front when you can keep the cash in your account a little longer? In March, a friend's birthday means Alex wants to buy a nice gift and a new outfit for the dinner. 2 separate BNPL transactions, one for $120, one for $90. In April, Alex's laptop starts running slow. A new one is $800. Obviously, Alex can't buy that outright right now, not with all those other payments coming out. But with BNPL, it's $200 every month for 4 months. That feels doable. By May, Alex has 6 active BNPL payment schedules running simultaneously. Different companies, different amounts, different payment dates. Every week, something is coming out of the account. Sometimes 2 things. The total monthly commitment from all of these interest-free, no-big-deal purchases? Over $400 a month. $400 a month that Alex never consciously allocated, never budgeted for, never sat down and decided to spend. It just accumulated purchase by purchase, each one feeling individually reasonable until the cumulative weight of all of them became something else entirely. And here's the quiet tragedy in Alex's story. That $400 a month, if it had gone anywhere else, a savings account, a simple index fund, literally anywhere, would have been $4,800 by the end of the year. Invested consistently for a decade, can it become something genuinely life-changing? But instead, it evaporated. One reasonable feeling purchase at a time. Now let's talk about what happens when things go slightly wrong. Because the zero interest, zero fees promise of BNPL comes with some very important fine print that the checkout page doesn't exactly lead with. Most BNPL services charge 0 interest. As long as you make every payment on time. Miss a payment? Late fees apply. In many cases, missing a payment can retroactively apply interest to your entire purchase balance, not just the missed amount. The 0% deal was conditional, and the condition was perfect payment timing, which becomes increasingly difficult to maintain when you have multiple overlapping payment schedules running across multiple providers, none of which communicate with each other. There's also the credit score dimension, which is changing rapidly. Historically, BNPL purchases didn't show up on your credit report the way credit cards do. Many young people chose BNPL specifically because it wouldn't affect their credit. But the major credit bureaus have started incorporating BNPL payment behavior into credit scoring models. Multiple BNPL accounts, even if paid on time, can be interpreted as a sign of financial stress. Missed payments can cause real, lasting damage to your credit score, which affects your ability to rent an apartment, get a mortgage, or secure any kind of financing at favorable rates later in life. And then there's the return problem. With a credit card, disputing a charge or processing a return is relatively straightforward. The charge simply doesn't post or gets reversed. With BNPL, the process is often messier. Many users have reported continuing to receive payment requests even after initiating a return, leaving them in the uncomfortable position of paying for something they no longer have while waiting for the refund to process through a separate channel. None of this is hidden, exactly. It's all in the terms and conditions that approximately 0% of users actually read at checkout. Which brings us to the most important psychological insight of this entire video. Here is the deeper truth about buy now, pay later that the industry absolutely does not want you to think about. BNPL is not a payment tool. It is a spending tool, and those two things are not the same. A payment tool helps you manage money you already have. A spending tool helps you spend money you haven't earned yet. And it does it in a way that feels so frictionless, so reasonable, so completely unlike the credit card debt your parents warned you about, that you don't even recognize it as debt while you're accumulating it. The traditional credit card industry, for all its problems, at least had the courtesy to be obvious about what it was. High interest rates, minimum payments, revolving balances. These were signals, however painful, that you were living beyond your means. They were uncomfortable enough that many people were motivated to stop. BNPL removed the discomfort. It made debt feel like a sensible, modern approach to budgeting. It rebranded borrowing as convenience. And it did something that no financial product before it had quite managed to do. It made spending money you don't have feel not just acceptable, but smart. And here is why that matters for your wealth more than almost anything else. The biggest financial threat to young people today is not the dramatic, obvious money mistake. It's the slow, invisible, completely reasonable feeling leak. Nobody goes broke from one buy now, pay later purchase. Nobody ruins their financial future by splitting the cost of a jacket into 4 payments. The danger isn't any single transaction. The danger is the habit. The normalization of spending slightly beyond your current cash position, constantly, on 100 small things that each feel justifiable, and never sitting down to look at what all of those justifiable things add up to. Because when you add them up, the picture changes completely. A 25-year-old who spends an average of $300 a month through BNPL, a completely ordinary, not even high number by current usage statistics, and who instead redirected that $300 into a simple index fund, earning a historical average return, would have over $800,000 by the time they reach 65. Not from a high salary, not from complex investment strategies, just from redirecting one deeply normalized spending habit into an investment instead. That is what the checkout page doesn't show you. That is what the 4 easy payments banner never mentions. The real cost of buy now, pay later isn't the purchase price. It's the future wealth that never got built because the money was already spoken for before it ever had a chance to compound. So, what do you actually do? Because the honest answer is not never use BNPL ever again. The world is not that simple. Sometimes these tools are used genuinely responsibly for a single planned purchase with a clear repayment plan, using money that is already sitting in your account. But that is not how most people use them. And the difference between a tool and a trap is almost entirely about whether you're using it intentionally or whether it's using you. Here is a practical framework for thinking about this clearly. The first thing to do is run a BNPL audit on yourself right now. Open your email, search for confirmation emails from Klarna, Afterpay, Affirm, or any other BNPL service. Find every active payment schedule you currently have running, add them all up, total monthly commitment, total remaining balance. Write the number down, look at it. For many people, this number is genuinely shocking. Not because any single purchase was reckless, but because the accumulation happened in tiny, invisible increments that never triggered the alarm bells that a single large debt would have. The act of seeing the total number clearly in one place is itself a powerful intervention. Because your brain has been experiencing each BNPL purchase in isolation, which is precisely what made each one feel so manageable. Seeing the aggregate breaks the psychological spell. The second thing is to introduce a 48-hour rule for any BNPL purchase. When you reach a checkout page and feel the pull of split this into 4 easy payments, close the tab and wait 48 hours. Not forever, just 48 hours. What you'll find is that a significant percentage of those purchases The ones that felt urgent and desirable at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday when you'd had a long day feel completely optional 48 hours later. The impulse fades, the FOMO evaporates, and the money stays in your account. This works because it reintroduces the friction that BNPL was designed to remove. Friction is not always your enemy. Sometimes friction is the moment of pause that lets your rational brain catch up with your emotional one. The third move is the most powerful. Give your money a job before BNPL can give it one. This goes back to the automation principle. If a fixed percentage of every paycheck is already directed to an investment account automatically, before you open your shopping apps, before you scroll past the sale notification, before the checkout page appears, then the money that BNPL wants to claim has already been deployed elsewhere. You can't impulse BNPL your way through money that has already been invested. The decision was already made. The gate is already closed, and the version of you that clicks Pay in 4 at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday simply doesn't have access to the money you future self is going to need. The fourth thing is to change the question you ask at checkout. Most people, when they see the BNPL option, ask, "Can I afford the installment?" That is the wrong question. Now, the installment is designed to be small enough that the answer is almost always yes. The right question is, if this entire amount left my account today, would I still choose to buy this? Because in reality, the entire amount is leaving your account, just slowly, quietly, and at a time when the emotional connection to the purchase has long since faded. If the answer to the full price question is no, then the BNPL option isn't making the purchase more affordable. It's making an unaffordable purchase feel affordable. And that distinction is everything. Here is what I want you to take away from this. Buy now, pay later is not evil. It is not a scam in the traditional sense. Nobody is lying to you about the terms. The terms are right there, in writing, in text that most people skip past in 12 seconds on their way to clicking confirm. What it is a system that was designed by very smart people with very sophisticated understanding of human psychology to make one specific behavior feel as easy and as natural and as consequence-free as possible. That behavior is spending money you haven't received yet on things you want right now in amounts small enough to feel painless. And that behavior, repeated consistently over months and years, is quietly doing something to an entire generation that credit card debt used to do more loudly and more obviously. It is consuming the raw material of wealth, your income, your cash flow, your monthly surplus, before it ever has the chance to become anything more than a confirmation email and a tracking number. The generation that was supposed to be smarter about debt deserves to actually be smarter about debt. And being smarter starts not with avoiding every financial product that exists, but with understanding the psychology behind the product well enough to decide when you're using it and when it's using you. Every installment you choose is a choice. Every pay in 4 is a redirection of money that could have been compounding quietly in the background, building something you can't wear, can't show off, can't feel the dopamine hit of unboxing, but that will one day give you something no purchase ever could. Options, freedom, time. That is what the checkout page never shows you, but now you know it's there, and knowing that changes everything. If this video hit differently than you expected, if it made you open your email and start counting BNPL confirmations, that reaction is worth something. Subscribe to this channel, and because every week we make videos designed to show you the financial system the way it actually works, not the way it's marketed to you. The next video is something you're going to want to see.